Welcome to episode 1 of Pop Goes The Throwdown. Like I've said in many episodes of The Throwdown, we are mostly a pro wrestling related venture, but we do dabble a little bit here and there in pop culture. And I'm always looking for recommendations for things to check out. So I decided to try something a little different, and I'm going to start doing some short form reviews for movies, TV shows, books, and music, along with all of the wrestling related content. This is just something a little different that I'm wanting to try. And recently, I can't remember who it was, but somebody suggested checking out the movie Weapons. Weapons is written and directed by a guy named Zach Kregger, who wrote and directed the 2022 movie Barbarian. Barbarian, I enjoyed quite a bit. I thought it was unique and pretty original in its storytelling. So, after seeing Barbarian and hearing that the same guy uh, is the guy behind the movie Weapons, I really had high hopes. So the other day I sat down and watched it. And the first 30 to 45 minutes of the movie was actually really compelling. I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds here, but the basic premise is a class of third graders in a small town in Pennsylvania all go missing, with the exception of one kid. And it's revealed through surveillance camera footage that the kids all get up and leave their houses at 2:17 in the morning, and they all just slip out of their houses and walk off into the night. And so, after that premise is established, you're then introduced to the school teacher whose students all disappeared, who is under suspicion for being involved. And then you also get introduced to that one kid who did not go missing. And along the way, you meet some other folks, including the father of one of the missing kids, who's kind of running his own investigation, a local police officer, and a couple of other residents of the town. And all of these people may or may not be involved with whatever happened. So it's really a pretty cool setup. Unfortunately, this is where the creative ball, like I said, it's unfortunate, but I feel like the creative ball really gets dropped at this point with kind of a resounding thud. And again, if you haven't seen Weapons, stop here because we're going to get into some spoilers. But ultimately, you find out that the kids are all being held by a dying witch who can basically use them as, for lack of a better term, batteries to replenish her life force, or she can actually use them to kind of do her bidding on each other or on other people, hence the name Weapons as the title of the movie. Unfortunately, this supernatural carnivore preying on children trope has been done many times in many ways. One particular example that immediately springs to mind is Joe Hill's book and TV series Nosferatu. But in the case of Weapons, um, unfortunately, this trope is not done extremely well. And really, once the reveal is made as to what is actually going on, the movie kind of spirals downward and kind of ends with a whimper and not really a bang. Um, ultimately the witch's spell is broken and she is dealt with by actually the children that she was imprisoning, which there's actually kind of an interesting sequence toward the end of the movie where the children deal with her. um, and we actually don't get an entirely happy ending for the movie, though. The children that were under the witch's spell, at least for the most part, appear to have been left in varying levels of catatonic states that they may or may not ever fully recover from. Although, according to the narrative at the end, some of the children are beginning to regain the ability to speak. Like I said, the setup for weapons had all kinds of cool possibilities that could have been explored, but just weren't. It really reminded me of the setup reminded me of the Stephen King novel Needful Things, which is just excellent, by the way. The book is incredible. The film version, not so much. Honestly, don't even bother with the film version. In the novel, the devil essentially takes up residence in a small town in Maine, and through some nefarious means, which I won't give away here, essentially turns the townsfolk against each other. And I was kind of hoping for something along those lines here. Uh, you know, really explore the suspicion of the townsfolk for each other and really delve into that. But instead, we ended up with Gladys the Witch. I'm not going to say that Weapons is a horrible movie, because it's not. It was pretty well executed for what it is, but in my opinion, it could have just been so much more. So I'll give Weapons a 2.25 stars out of 5. Um, like I said, not a horrible movie, but it just had so much potential to really be great. And I just feel like the creative ball, unfortunately, got dropped. So moving on, I also recently watched the 2025 James Gunn directed Superman movie, which I have a lot to say about, and I plan to do another episode of Pop Goes The Throwdown, hopefully this weekend, to talk about Superman and where the new James Gunn-led DC movie universe may be headed. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And in the meantime, guys, I am looking for recommendations. So if you've seen a cool movie, watched a great TV show, listened to a great album of music, or read a killer book, let me know about it in the comments or DM me or something, and I'll try to check it out and do a video about it. In the meantime, I'm out of here, but look for my reaction to the 2025 version of Superman very soon. Have a good night.